Well, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Why is that? Oh, nice. Right. Jesus. Right, let's figure out what is going on with Keir Starmer, shall we? Because this guy, it looks like it's over for him, in my opinion. It could be Jova. I mean, remember when that was a thing? Let's try and figure this out then quickly, because to me at least, it looks like it looks not great, I must say. Let's see. Bombshell from Westminster. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in full panic mode. Isn't that a football rep guy? Isn't that what the fuck are you reporting on politics now? I mean, fair. It's a good point, to be honest. This from Jess Phillips' resignation letter is devastating from the Prime Minister. Over a year ago, presented solutions long worked on by brilliant civil servants that would end the ability for children in the UK to take naked images of themselves. 91% of online child sex abuse is self-generated by children groomed. Okay. Okay. Tricked and exploited into abuse. Yeah, bad. This technology exists to stop children from being able to take naked images of themselves. We could make this possible on every phone and device in the country. We could stop this abuse if it had taken me a year to get you to agree to even threaten to legislate in this space. Not legislate, just threaten. This is the definition of incremental change. Nothing bold about it. Yeah. I mean, it's Keir Starmer, though. What did you expect, right? The announcement was meant to be in March. I'm still on the promise this will happen in June. I've given up believing it. How many children were left without safety? Yeah, but it's not as clear cut as that, though, is it, Jess? Like, it's never going to be. He just wouldn't agree to doing the things that we needed him to do. And if anything, it was probably that they had a timeline of legislation that needed to come through, and then there tends to be some delays in getting the motion, let's call it, through Parliament, and that has been the problem. However, I'm not somebody here trying to fight on Keir Starmer's behalf. No chance. But I'm just saying, on balance, I reckon that's probably what the rationale is. That the most interesting, we could make this intrusive software possible on every phone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. I didn't see that bit. But it's a good point. The most interesting line, we could make this intrusive software possible on every phone and device in the country. Surprised you chose not to linger on that statement. Freedom-loving journalist that you are. I mean, that's a good point, to be honest. I mean, it's very typical, isn't it? That a journalist whose whole spiel is that they need to be able to say what they want is happy for the UK government to be able to put something on their phones that can control what they're seeing and doing, and etc. What a load of horseshit. It's almost as if it doesn't understand technology, but it's happy to infringe the rights of the masses. I mean, that's the problem with the UK government, just in general, is that you tend to find that they're constantly happy to just infringe on your own rights, and they'll do it willy-nilly. How is this devastating? She was resigning because the PM hadn't mandated device level 6 surveillance on every device in the country. Is the first thing I've bloody read that makes me actually like him. I mean, yeah, to be fair. Why? Because she wants to implement surveillance technology on every phone in the UK while simultaneously refusing to enact an inquiry into the rape gangs because she knows she'll lose her seat. Brutal. Yeah, it's never what it seems, is it? Let's face it, it's never what it seems. I need to check with this. Why? Because she wants to implement surveillance technology on every phone in the UK while simultaneously refusing to enact an inquiry into the rape gangs because she knows she'll lose her seat. Brutal. Yeah, it's never what it seems, is it? Let's face it, it's never what it. Sorry, I was just watching over my video there. I don't like this woman, but surely this is exactly the problem. Focusing on tangential things while sidelining the important stuff. Note to new leader: focus on the basics that make the UK believe you at least care about us. Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's no sort of A-list minister. Let's just face it. She's bloody awful. She doesn't have a clue what she's doing. What was that? Keir Starmer banned a Belgian member of parliament from travelling to the country on the rally on Saturday. Wow. Let's face it, it's not shocking, is it? Huh? Yeah, Keir Starmer later today, after much deliberation, consultation with ministerial colleagues, and as well as members of the wider parliamentary Labour Party, have decided that the right thing to do is set out a timeline for new leadership. Oh, yeah, in 2020, 2034. Yeah. The fact of the matter is that he is not keen on relinquishing power, and he's going to do everything in his way, in his power, to prevent that from happening. You know, from him losing his seat. He just won't let that be the case. His seat, I mean, being prime minister. But yeah, what are people really saying here? What's the Daily Mail saying? Because it's always a bit of juicy gossip on the Daily Mail. Starmer hit with more resignations after toe curling cabinet, where he brushed aside leadership meltdown and refused to see Streeting. Yes, because it's Wes Streeting that's going to be one of the people who is going to be keen on running to be the prime minister. Mutiny number 10 grows. That's going to be an advert, though, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not playing that. Keir Starmer effectively dared his rivals to move against him this morning, telling the weekly gathering at number 10 the Labour Party has processed for challenging leader, and that has not been triggered. The country expects us to get on with governing. That's what I'm doing, and what we must do as a cabinet. Yeah, honestly, I'm not surprised by that. As I said, he has no interest on relinquishing any power. He just will not relinquish the power at all. Health Secretary Wes Streeting, regarded by Keir Starmer's dwindling band of allies as being behind the coup, Jesus, was present to hear the start message. However, Keir is said to have immediately moved to the Iran war. According to one government source, Keir has it in his cabinet he won't discuss the elections of his leadership, and he will only speak to cabinet ministers about them individually. Then, after the meeting, he refused to see cabinet ministers individually. Yeah, that's shocking. Not. Extraordinary House Secretary Steve Reed appeared to be posting on social media from inside the cabinet room, urging people to unite behind the PM. A few loyalist ministers spoke to waiting reporters as they exited through the famous black door, although a grim-faced Mr. Streeting strode away silently. And that's where we got that famous... Wait, why is her face on the top right of that, by the way? Yeah, it's so Jess Phillips to stick a photograph on the letterhead. It's commonplace. It's not commonplace. Anyone that says that's commonplace is completely deluded. That is not commonplace. To the MPs who shout Liz Truss whenever the economy is discussed, should note that the UK 10-year bond yield under Truss peaked at 4.7%. This morning, because of Reeves and Starmer's ineptitude, the 10-year bond yield is 5.02%. Labour crashed the economy. I mean, they're crashing the economy. They're helping to crash the economy. But to suggest that they're the only ones that have done the damage is a load of crap. It's coming from a government source at their supportive assessment of the cabinet meeting. Keir said in cabinet that he wouldn't discuss the elections or his leadership, and that would only speak to cabinet ministers about them individually. Then after meeting, he refused to see the cabinet ministers. Yeah, okay. Jesus, she is rough. Bring on the coordinated resignations. I hope they make this publicly embarrassing and painful as possible. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by that, are they? What? They think they've got a seat lined up for Andy Burnham already. I should be surprised, but I'm not, because he is their main guy. He's the guy they want to succeed. Although the funny part would be if it turns out he leaves Manchester, no longer the mayor there, and then he ends up losing whatever seat he contests for the Labour Party. Now that would be absolutely brilliant, because they would have lost the sort of. There's a good chance they would lose the mayoralty in Manchester. Then he won't even get what he'd aimed to get at whatever seat he ends up running for. It would just be beautiful. It'd be absolutely beautiful. I mean, personally, I've got a belief that Andy Burnham's not good enough anyway. I mean, there's nothing to really suggest that he's going to be the saving grace of the Labour Party. I'm yet to see anything to suggest that. I still can't get over the fact that Jess Phillips decided to put her face on the letterhead of a resignation letter. It's like no one knows who she is. All right, they do actually, to be fair, but no one wants to know who she is, right?
Bardella, Chancellor Merz is struggling in Germany. Interesting. Global financial crisis, who are really suffering, now look actually in pretty good shape. Look at Greece, look at Spain, look at Ireland. So the problem is in the core. What is very different about Britain, and I think this has been a feature since Brexit, which has been an enormous distraction as well as causing economic damage, is the degree of financial instability, political instability, which you've just outlined. Not just 6 prime ministers on the draw, but also 5 different cabinet secretaries, the head of the civil service, half a dozen defense secretaries, 5 chancellors. This is very serious, and those election results point to further fragmentation. We're in a completely different world, and the world is looking at us, previously a pretty stable political country, and saying, you're in the second tier, you're in the second division.
Well, the only reason we're on a second tier is simply because
in the second division,
prime ministers and governments just completely failed to want to allow us to fail to accept the will of the people. And that was true with Brexit, it's true with immigration, it's true with deregulation, it's true with so many different aspects of our country. And that's the reason why we constantly go through these massive fluctuations in who runs our country and how we're going economically.
Now, talking about this potential leadership contest, if there is one, they're saying, this is a time for grown-up leadership on the world stage. There's a G7 summit coming up. It's the King's speech tomorrow. What are the names in there that would provide security, and the ones that are the unknowns and would cause ripples negatively?
Well, I'm sure you and Sam have got a much better list than I have. I would say that reading Angela Rayner's 1,000-word statement yesterday, it was sort of Tony Benn light, Bennite light. That would certainly scare financial markets, the idea of greater state ownership, greater state intervention.
These people ain't got a clue
in the financial markets. I don't want to mark really anybody else's card, but perhaps Sam might have something to say about the dark horse Darren Jones, who clearly is sizing up his chances, it seems to.
Well, plenty happening this morning and into this afternoon. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, has been following events from Downing Street. A lot of support there from Starmer loyalists after that cabinet meeting. And we were talking about what would happen this afternoon. And you said, there could be a big move. And it's happened in the form of the safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips, someone who is Labour through and through, one of the best known figures in the party. And a big professional and personal decision for her, because her and Sir Keir Starmer are close.
Yeah, Exclusively on Sky News, we revealed that Jess Phillips has sent her letter of resignation to the Prime Minister. She said, I want a Labour government to work and I will strive as I always have, for its success and popularity, but I'm not seeing the change I think and the country expect. I cannot continue to serve as a minister under the current leadership. She says Labour is not grasping this opportunity with the gusto it's needed. This is a big moment, SJ, because Jess Phillips is one of the better-known Labour. She's one of the best-known Labour MPs.
Not for good reason.
For leadership. She's known to be on the progressive wing of the party. She's known widely to be an ally of Wes Streeting, and she is the second minister to resign today. As we were saying, 81 MPs have now resigned, and Jess Phillips standing down will really be a shockwave through the party, because that is a big name walking away, and also walking away from the safeguarding job that she's deeply committed to. I mean, she and Keir Starmer go back a long way, as I was saying. They worked together when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions. She, a campaigner working in the whole area of violence against women and girls, which really she dedicated her life to before she became an MP, and it has become the thing that she has done in government, but she has stood down from government. So that's two ministerial resignations, and really in that letter saying what many, MPs are feeling, that it's not being grasped with the gusto, she would put it, that's needed, and that the change that the country needs. And she's clearly got frustrated and decided, decided to go and just let it out. We haven't heard yet from the Prime Minister, because she would have called the Prime Minister to tell him, I assume. And we're now waiting to see what the Prime Minister's response will be. There will be an exchange of letters, but Jess Phillips there.
That's seizing the opportunity, because there is a sense of, when, not if, there is a change in leadership.
Wait, did she just
the
swear?
The clock is ticking. Labour have been in power for 18 months, decimated at the local elections, hugely damaging. And, the projection going into a general election that Sky News did, if that kind of result was translated on the national stage, Reform would be the biggest party. So the clock is ticking on this Labour government. They've only got a finite amount of time until a general election to prove to the public that they are the ones to govern. And I think you get a sense of that in what Jess Phillips is saying.
Yeah, I think the point about the points Jess are making in a letter is kind of what a lot of people would be saying privately, which is, you can't workshop this stuff. You have to show emotion. You have to show feeling. You have to sort of lead with some passion. I mean, that is kind of the way she does her politics and her business.
But she's just completely
she's got
incompetent,
to the point where she really does want to try and force a change in leadership. Otherwise, she wouldn't be standing down from government. And I imagine, and I don't know, but I would imagine that Jess Phillips would be a supporter of Wes Streeting.
What do you think other MPs will make of this move? Because we talked about earlier on, everybody will be looking at everyone else. Who's making the first move? Who are people gravitating towards? What does this signal, do you think?
I think partly what this will show is that this is a big name leaving government. It's the first really big name to leave government and say call time on Keir Starmer, and it comes after that really big push in cabinet. And I think the question for me now is, Jess Phillips has gone over and said, I'm not continuing to serve. What are those cabinet ministers going to do that in good conscience agree with Jess Phillips and think that the Prime Minister needs to stand down? Are they going to sit on their hands, or are we going to see perhaps a cabinet resignation, or at least some more ministerial resignations? But I think it will, on the one hand, shock the party, because, as I said, she's such a prominent figure. But I think also it will create more tensions and divisions, because there will be other people there saying, well, Jess Phillips is a big supporter of Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting is orchestrating this destabilisation of the Prime Minister. I imagine that will be some of the criticism. But I think Jess Phillips was very honest in that letter there, in how she felt. She talked about grasping the rare opportunity with the gusto that's needed. She said decency is vital, calm curiosity is also needed. I mean, I think she's referencing what she sees as the characteristics of the Prime Minister there, but so too a fight and drive. Have a row, she says, push back, make arguments, bring people along. Standing up and being counted can't always be workshopped. Politics is as much about feelings as
Makes you
policies,
laugh, really, because they're trying to
especially
make
at
out
the
as if
moment.
Jess Phillips' whole constituency isn't going to vote against her when she comes up for re-election. And the reason she's doing any of this is because she knows the writing's on the wall. She knows that the Labour Party is cooked, and she actually knows that she ain't going to have a job for much longer because she only kept her seat by about 400 votes.
And she goes on to say,
let's double check that.
I will strive as always for success and popularity for this government, but I'm not seeing the change I think the country expects. I cannot continue. So, I mean, that's her verdict. That's her verdict there on the Prime Minister, that he's decent, that he has calm curiosity, but actually the fight, the passion, you know, the feeling that she wants to see
so annoying, Beth Rigby,
to try and win over voters. And as I said just a moment ago, she and Wes Streeting, they were staring down the lens of defeat at the last general election. Both of them, I think, came within a few hundred votes of holding on to their seats. And she clearly wants to, she clearly's decided she cannot serve.
Well, she can't serve because she's no good. I mean, look, here we are. Jess Phillips, she won literally by, about 700 and what? Less than 700 votes. She ain't got a seat. She almost lost to the Workers' Party. She ain't got a seat. There's a reason why Jess Phillips, this big dog, this most important Labour MP, because she's so emotive, is worried. It's because she hasn't got anywhere to go. She knows she's about to lose her bloody seat. So, yeah, I'm not really sure she's as much of a big gun as Beth Rigby wants her to be. I actually think Beth Rigby's probably friends with her. So, I'm not sure you can really trust everything you hear on that front. But what do I know?
The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened, so we all intend to get on with our jobs, and that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What did the Cabinet say to him, sir? He said that they haven't triggered the leadership.
So what we had there is
Robert
Steve
Peston, I bloody hate him.
walking out of... There we go. There's a bit of a sense of the chaos behind us. What we saw there was Steve Reid, Community Secretary, key ally of Keir Starmer, coming out.
Lisa Nandy.
And here we have
Lisa Nandy.
and James Murray.
Robert Peston, he's so annoying. You see him just jog over there. It's just something about him.
Did you ask the Prime Minister to stand down? David Lammy. David Lammy, can you come and talk on Sky News?
Jesus.
David Lammy, is the PM fighting on?
Seems. Didn't quite jog over there. It's just something about him.
Did you ask the Prime Minister to stand down? David Lammy. Bridget, what's your message to those who would want Keir Starmer to go? Emma, what's your message?
They don't care. I mean, they've got jobs to do. Why do you think they care?
The key ally.
Makes me laugh a little bit, really. Like, why do you think they care?
Deciding to give a short statement to the cameras here and to our political editor Beth Rigby to say that he wants him to fight on, that there was a unity around the Prime Minister. Nobody else has given us any words yet, but of course we're still awaiting for Ed Miliband, we're still awaiting for Wes Streeting, for some of the others to come from outside that door. I'm just going to stand up, which may look slightly weird and short, just emerging.
It's very.
There we go.
I mean, yeah.
Still, I don't know if we want to jump out when people come down.
I don't know if the viewers also saw Robert Peston of ITV in frame.
Yeah,
he was trying to find out because actually what happened there was really unusual, because Steve Reid came out and said a statement to cameras. Now, that never really happens after Cabinet. I've never known that to happen. But you saw how he looked as well. He looked furious. And he came out and he made a very brief statement, basically repeating what the Prime Minister had said, which is a leadership contest had not been triggered and they were getting on with it, and the Prime Minister was staying on, and then he stalked off. He looked furious.
And he, of course, tweeted from within Cabinet while it was going on as well, talking about the need to unite, talking about the disruption for the country if they turn on each other. I think the question that we're still trying to answer is Steve Reid reflective of the entire Cabinet?
No, and also the question, I was yelling at him, but I was tethered to a mic, so I couldn't actually physically chase him, was what did the Cabinet say in response? And that's what we now need to hear. And others have subsequently come out. We've had David Lammy, John Healey, we've had Emma Reynolds, we've had Bridget Phillipson coming out in pairs, chatting with each other, pretending we're all not here, when there's a bank of like 200 cameras. But obviously, Steve Reid dispatched there to be the Prime Minister's cheerleader-in-chief, if you like. Peter
here we go.
Kyle, would you speak to Sky News, sir? Would you come and speak to Sky News?
Oh, we like Sky News.
Peter Kyle, I'm fine, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
How was Cabinet, and what did everyone say when Keir Starmer said a leadership race had not been triggered?
Well, it's the fact. We've had a very purposeful Cabinet meeting talking about the big issues facing our economy and society. Nothing has been triggered. I'm about to go off to Brussels to continue working with Brussels to deepen the relationship, to benefit Britain. We are working hard on the big issues that are facing the country, and Keir is showing really steadfast leadership.
Sure,
and I
but
respect
it's
that. I respect that.
Peter, did anyone challenge him? Liz Kendall, would you come and talk to us briefly? Thank you.
Oh, this is Beth Rigby.
Liz Kendall, what happened? What happened in the Cabinet?
Well, the Prime Minister talked about the challenges we face as a country, the crisis in the Middle East, the impact on the cost of living here, and that this government will do what we were elected to do, which is serve the British people. The Prime Minister has my full
Why is she dressed
support
like
in
that?
this. And let me
just
just say this. There is a process to challenge the leader. No one has made that challenge. And what people would expect me to do is to focus on how we can grow the economy, tackle the cost of living, and give them a better life.
So the Prime Minister's
and
saying
that
put
is
up
what
or shut
we're
up.
Did
going
anyone
to do.
challenge him in the room? Did anyone challenge him?
I mean, they're just towing the party line, let's face it. They've been given a
this is
speech, they're going to say it.
Very interesting.
And I think what we've got is we've got members of the Cabinet coming out of here and arguing the Prime Minister's position,
Yes,
effectively.
5%.
What we haven't had the answer to, which Beth asked a lot, is whether or not anyone directly challenged him in that room.
Look, Pat McFadden, would you come and say a few words, sir? Pat, can you come and say a few words? Can you come and say a few words, sir?
Look at this guy. I'm tethered.
Prime Minister is going to continue with his job, as he should, as the public will expect him to do, and I'm going to continue with mine.
Pat, did anyone challenge him? Did anyone challenge him around that table? Did anyone publicly challenge him around the
No, they
cabinet
didn't.
table?
Prime
They
Minister had
didn't.
many statements of support for the job that he's doing, and that's what the public...
What about those who
Can he hang on?
He'll carry on.
Can he hang
Prime Minister
on?
wants to carry on with his job, as he should, as the public will expect him to do.
Mr. McFadden,
Thank you
where's
very much.
Streeting give his support?
Okay, so that was just to say what Pat McFadden said there. He said no one challenged the Prime Minister when he made that statement.
What's going on at
No
Sky
one
News, eh?
challenged him. No one actually said to him publicly that they wanted him to go. And he also said that there are lots of messages of support around the table. And this is really fascinating because, Sophie, you can see what's happening.
Yeah.
They have lined up cabinet ministers who are backing Keir Starmer to come out of the door and make statements on camera. I've never seen this before.
No, I've never seen this
in all the
before.
time we've done it. Normally they leg it, but they're
One by
choosing
one.
to come
It's
and
true.
Make a statement. They're not really
It's
taking
true. It's
questions.
one by one.
But who have we had? We've had Liz Kendall, the Technology Secretary. We've had Pat McFadden, Steve
Peter
Reid,
Kyle.
and Peter Kyle. And Peter Kyle's interesting because obviously he's Wes Streeting's best friend. So this is really fascinating. This is a cabinet fighting back, at least some of them. But the question is, there are now 78 MPs that are saying that Keir Starmer needs to step down. But what he has done, at least, is corralled some of the cabinet, and they are coming on camera to say that he should continue.
And we know that the Prime Minister kicked off Cabinet by effectively throwing down the gauntlet, saying there's been no leadership challenge, looking at people, I guess, like Wes Streeting, looking at people like Ed Miliband, others who might challenge him, potentially Shabana Mahmood, saying, look, What are you going to do about it? And then, as you say, this very organised, unusual show of support by members of the cabinet.
Unusual, isn't it?
I am. I'll be honest. I'm a bit flabbergasted.
Yeah.
I'm quite old now, and I've done this a long time. I've never seen this. I've never seen cabinet ministers come out after a cabinet to publicly support the Prime Minister, and they're all with quite a similar message, which a leadership contest hasn't been triggered. We're getting on with the job. We're talking about substantive issues. The Prime Minister has my support. And the most telling one for me is the thing that I thought I was going to have to make 100 phone calls on, which was what was happening around the table. Did anyone publicly challenge him? And Pat McFadden clearly said, when I asked him that, no, they did not, which tells me that if some people had gone into him privately, such as Shabana Mahmood, she did not say it in front of other colleagues. And that also suggests to me, unless I hear otherwise from someone else, that Wes Streeting did not publicly challenge the PM. Anna Turning. Anna, could you spare a word for Sky News, Anna? Anna Turley there. He's got my full support, she says.
My question now is, where is Wes Streeting? Where is Shabana Mahmood? Where is Ed Miliband? None of them have left yet. Where are they?
Well, I can tell you where they are.
They might have gone round
They're
the
trying
back.
to figure out
But
what
if they
position they're
have
going to
gone
get in
round
the
back,
next
significant
government.
in itself, right? That you have the more supportive people coming out here, making those statements to the cameras, people who we know would be potentially more problematic.
This was quite an asymmetrical battle yesterday, in that what we had yesterday was a Prime Minister to come out fighting in the morning, and then what happened was there was this flow of resignations, and it built up to the PPSs, and then we know that 3 cabinet ministers went in to speak to the Prime Minister.
So
and
funny.
then it felt really that it was game over for him. And now what we're
I mean,
seeing
just
this
for
morning...
argument's sake, before we continue, this is what I've got on my tablet. Jeff Phillips gone. Security concerns around, what she can use and what she can't use. Putting stuff on your computer to be able to monitor what young kids do. I mean, bit suspect because it could be used for other things in the future. Is she a big deal? And also, if you look right here, it says photo on letterhead, because that isn't usual. You just don't do that kind of stuff. Then I have Beth Rigby. Is she a clown? Maybe. To me, she is, at least. And then funny moment outside Downing Street. I mean, so far, that's the crux of it. But we're going to keep going on because we want to know what's really going on here.
Is that he is trying to fight back. Now, it doesn't detract from the fact that there is a massive rebellion against him, and there's scores of MPs saying he's got to stand down. What was interesting too, though, was that David Lammy didn't actually come over and say anything, and he was ringing round MPs last night trying to canvass support for the Prime Minister, or just gauge through the party. And John Healey, who we know went in to see Keir Starmer last night, he didn't say anything either. But clearly, he's got 4 cabinet ministers there that have come out on camera. We might get some more, but that is the cabinet. I think what we can take from that is the cabinet's divided.
Yeah, exactly. The cabinet is
I could have told you that like 2-3 weeks ago, 2-3 months ago.
Is a serious stalking horse candidate or a serious contender actually throwing their hat in the ring, a Wes Streeting, for example, having to go over the top to get those 81 MPs, because it doesn't look like, what's almost certain, that Keir Starmer's not going to go unless that happens, right? He's not just going to listen to the men in grey suits and quietly slip off.
I think what we can now begin to sort of say more confidently, because obviously these cabinet meetings are closed meetings. You have the cabinet and then the officials sit round the edge, and there's a readout, and typically cabinet meetings don't leak unless the government's in a bit of bother, so maybe this one will leak quite a lot today. But I think what you saw there was the Prime Minister had a prepared statement, and then you probably had Liz Kendall, Peter Kyle, Pat McFadden coming out in support, Steve Reid then reaffirming the Prime Minister's position, and in that moment those that perhaps don't agree maybe didn't say anything, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to move.
Yeah, exactly.
It just, they didn't move in there. But I think I was told last night the Prime Minister was weighing up his options. You were told by Darren this morning that he had a decision to make. That he had a decision to make, and at least now what we know at 10 to 11 in the morning is that his decision has been made, which is I'm carrying on until you lot drag me out of here.
As we've been talking, the number of MPs who have called for the Prime Minister to go has ticked up by one. Rebecca Long-Bailey, someone on the left of the party, very clearly not a natural ally of Keir Starmer, but it's significant. It's gone up to 79. I mean, this is... Look, it's not a majority yet, but 79 MPs publicly saying...
No, it's terrible.
It is difficult to see how you come back from that.
When Boris Johnson... I mean, it's the famous sort of phrase now, when the herd moves, it moves. And it was Johnson sort of, you know, in his typical language, sort of reflecting on what happened to him and that he just couldn't stop the tide. Like, as much as he wanted, it washed over him and it pushed him out of Downing Street. It felt very much like the herd was moving. He's got 79 MPs calling for him to go. Where he is being helped is the fact that they are not unified around one candidate and they're divided. And I guess the question is, someone who is definitely not a supporter of West Streeting, who is a backer of Andy Burnham, was saying to me this morning, you know, there might be 80 MPs or 79 MPs or that are calling on the PM to go, but they are not unified behind one candidate. And so that's the question, like, do they actually get to the point where they can trigger a race? But I also have to say, Sophie, that it feels honestly so far gone for Keir Starmer that even if a race isn't triggered immediately or he continues a bit longer, it's really hard to see how he pulls it back from the place he's in. Yeah. It really is.
And also, you know, if we take it as almost a given that he won't lead Labour into the next election, then it does become a process or a thought of when it happens rather than if it happens, which is unbelievably destabilising for any leader, any Prime Minister.
Well, I think the thing for Keir Starmer is he's been in this destabilised position now for weeks. I mean, really, this has been going on, I think, really since the Mandelson files, really, when those documents were released showing some of the misjudgments made over the appointment. Lord Hermer, can you come and talk to Sky News, sir? Okay, that's Lord Hermer, who is. Keir Starmer brought him in. He's a whiz, a legal whiz, and he was a barrister with Keir Starmer, and they worked together, and they are very, very old friends. And Keir Starmer brought Lord Hermer into government so that he could be his Attorney General, his most senior legal brain, and he is his closest ally. That is his closest friend, although he didn't stop to talk.
I know, he didn't stop
to
talk.
He doesn't normally talk,
I'll be honest, yeah.
Have you ever seen Lord Hermer on camera?
I'll be honest, I'd be interested when he doesn't
do a morning round.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't do a morning round. It's interesting, though, because just talk about the morning round. Darren Jones, who, again, is an ally of Keir Starmer, right? You know, he's right in there with him. He's his chief of staff in some ways, on the political side, at least. I felt with that interview that the game was up.
The game is up, and, you know, as we're seeing here, so as we approach 3 p.m, Burnham allies believe momentum is now switching back to their man. Phil Wedge Treating will not risk a direct challenge. Well, this is Dan Hodges, remember. And cabinet ministers believe that while Starmer has vowed to dig in a way, will still need to be found to get him to map out a dignified transition. I mean, I don't expect that he's ever going to relinquish power if he doesn't need to. The way he's acted since he's been Prime Minister has been nothing but shameful. He's wanted to reduce people's freedoms and be more controlling than any other Prime Minister. Why do you think he was ever going to just give up the power? Why did you ever think he would just do that? It just was never going to happen. But anyway.
Sadness, and yet the tone, it feels, has shifted even throughout the morning.
Well, I mean, I also think, I think Darren Jones had a really different... West Streeting, did you call on Starmer to resign? There we go, he's absolutely...
What did you tell the Prime Minister?
No word from West Streeting, the man who so many people have been focused on this morning. We know from what Padden said to Beth that he did not directly challenge the Prime Minister at Cabinet. Whether or not he will directly challenge him in the coming days or even hours, I think remains to be seen, because the other thing that we don't know is Keir Starmer said If you want me, you have to challenge.
I was told, though, and this was by a minister last night, that there are ministers that are preparing, as they put it to me, if the cabinet won't do it, we will do it.
And there we go. I mean, none of that's a surprise to me.
It is a big moment.
Starmer's got no choice.
Good afternoon from Westminster, and a special programme as Keir Starmer fights his colleagues' attempts to topple him. The cabinet met this morning and loyalists, as you saw, came out afterwards saying they back him to stay. However, there have been calls from more than 80 Labour MPs now for him to quit. A ministerial resignation this morning. And cabinet ministers have privately advised Keir Starmer to consider his position. But he is refusing to make it easy, daring his opponents to stand up and formally challenge him, something they've all avoided so far, fearing that old political adage that those who wield the knife never wear the crown. We have not yet had a public statement one way or the other from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, nor from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who is reported to have told Keir Starmer he should step down. Let's get the latest on another extraordinary morning from Amelia Jen.
Should the Prime Minister resign, ministers? Is it over for Keir Starmer? Should the Prime Minister resign, Mr Healy? Will you ask for Keir Starmer
Are these the best
to
bits?
step down, Mr Miliband?
Frenzied questions ahead of a cabinet meeting like no other. Nearly 80 MPs have now called for the PM to go, a day after he said he wanted to stick around for a decade. Despite reports...
Hold on, I've got to show you guys this. This is ridiculous. Ha ha ha. Wait, Keir Starmer has turbocharged my arousal levels. I feel fruity. My friend say why she had to excuse herself from our group chat. The new cabinet, but we knew. All right, that was kind of funny. Anyway, we continue.
And Secretary have privately told him the writing is on the wall, a stay of execution for now. In that meeting, Sir Keir Starmer was defiant. He again accepted responsibility for the election results that caused that groundswell of anger against him, but he also said that the formal process to challenge him hadn't yet been triggered. And he said that the public wants us to get on with governing. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what we, as a cabinet, must also do. This morning's papers had declared a government in chaos with Starmer on the brink. The Daily Star using language the British public well understands. Dear PM, by order of the traitors, you have been murdered.
I think this is probably about the most unjustified attack on a faithful since Joe Marler was banished in the final of Celebrity Traitors, and clearly someone in Downing Street has been watching far too much of that programme.
Words that the Health Secretary may yet have to swallow. It's no secret he's long been poised.
Wes Streeting, do you want to be Prime Minister?
He's even reported to have forewarned the PM as early as January that if a challenge was triggered, he would prepare the case for a leadership bid. But keeping his powder dry, he hasn't yet delivered the decisive blow, fielding questions from journalists. Others are already accusing him and his supporters of a coup.
What we can't have, in my opinion, is a cabinet coup, a palace stitch-up, which results in a Wes Streeting coronation, because anybody, including Wes Streeting, who's been in Keir's top team in the cabinet, can't represent themselves to the public as a fresh start.
Many of those calling for a timetabled rather than immediate departure are backing Andy Burnham. The Mayor of Greater Manchester's attempt to stand as an MP was blocked by the party's ruling committee earlier this year, prompting fury from his allies. His route back to Parliament requires an MP to stand aside, triggering a by-election, a process that would take weeks to more than a month at minimum.
What we're seeing is that 2024 Labour voters are increasingly saying he should go and are split on this question. So the public are losing their patience with Keir Starmer.
We've now got two contenders who everyone knows are vying for the top job, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham. How palatable are either of them to the public?
So in polling, what we're seeing is Andy Burnham is the standout candidate, but he's still only getting around 1 in 5, 1 in 4 saying he would do a good job. So standout, but against quite a low bar. Wes Streeting, on the other hand, around 1 in 10 think he'd be a good Prime Minister, so very low.
Today, emerging from Cabinet, some ministers stopped to give the Prime Minister their full backing.
the Prime Minister has my full support in
government
this.
doesn't have confidence.
And let me
Surely.
just say this: there is a process to challenge the leader. No one has made that challenge.
Good.
Well, it's the fact. We've had a very purposeful cabinet meeting talking about the big issues facing our economy and society. Nothing has been triggered. I'm about to go off to Brussels to continue working with Brussels to deepen a relationship, to benefit Britain. We are working hard on the big issues that are facing the country, and Keir is showing really steadfast leadership.
Just as Parliament is getting ready for tomorrow's King's speech, fated by loyalists as a reset moment, setting out the government's plan for the next year, the Prime Minister is fighting for his future. The old cliché, 24 hours is a long time in politics, felt so keenly today in Downing Street.
Well, Jackie Long is in Downing Street and has been following as those cabinet ministers went in and out. Jackie.
Yeah, Christian, there have been extraordinary scenes this morning after an extraordinary couple of days for this Prime Minister and this government. An absolutely defiant Prime Minister, by the sounds of it, inside Number 10, with a very, very blunt message. I am going nowhere, despite the catastrophic election results, a growing list of MPs calling on him to stand down. His first ministerial resignation. He is digging in, almost daring his opponents to challenge him. Then we had two very distinct streams of cabinet ministers leaving this morning's cabinet meeting, many walking away without saying anything, which is the usual run of things here. But the very unusual scenes this morning, we had a line of cabinet ministers come out of Number 10 and come straight for the cameras, come straight to talk to reporters. They all said they backed the Prime Minister, they had full confidence in him, and they echoed what he was saying inside, that it is business as usual.
The Prime Minister has my full support. The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened, so we all intend to get on with our jobs, and that's what I'm going to do now.
Thank you very much.
What does the cabinet say to him, sir?
How can the government carry on like this?
The Prime Minister is going to continue with his job, as he should, as the public will expect him to do, and I'm going to continue with mine.
Did anyone challenge him? Did anyone challenge him around that table? Did anyone publicly challenge him around
No,
the
they
table?
didn't. Prime Minister had many statements of support for the job that he's doing, and that's what the public
What about
should
those who
expect.
don't support him?
The Prime Minister wants to carry on with his job, as he should, as the public will expect him to do.
Mr.
Thank
McFadden,
you
where's
very much.
Streeting give his support? Okay.
Well, the intention here, or certainly the hope, is to try to quell the frenzy around Keir Starmer's leadership. The real question is, does that have any chance of working, or is the genie now out of the bottle completely? Perhaps as instructive as the list of cabinet ministers who came over to talk to us today to declare their loyalty was the question of who was walking out silently. All eyes and all cameras were focused on the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. Huge speculation for days about whether he would use this moment to challenge the PM. The background briefings said to be from his allies was that he would only move if he thought things had collapsed entirely. Well, I suppose the question is what looks like total collapse to him. That's what we're waiting
The only
to find.
annoying thing about all this is this. I mean, it is true, we used to have somewhat of a normal society, a political structure. Now we have what was Major, Blair, Brown, Cameron, normal prime ministers, and then the absolute dross that came afterwards. All these people, May, Boris, Truss and Sunak, and what will be Starmer, should just be collectively rounded up and told, you're not invited to any of the ceremonies going forwards, because you represent just one chapter in Britain's history, and you guys don't get a chapter each. That's my opinion, right? You can define those first four as chapters in and of itself. The next four, or 5 when you include Starmer, don't deserve it, in my opinion. But let's just continue, eh? What do you guys think? Let me know.
Krish.
Thanks, Jackie. Well, our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me. So that's what happened in front of the cameras outside. What have you found out about what was going on in the cabinet meeting?
We said last night that we thought there was a potential for this to be a dysfunctional meeting. Boy, was it dysfunctional, because the statement that Keir Starmer read out, which Amelia was just reporting on, where he basically says, I'm not going anywhere, at the end of reading that out, he moves straight on to Iran as the next item on the agenda. Nobody in the room gets the chance to discuss the elephant in the room. Is he actually staying? How quickly might he be leaving? And all the rest of it. And that's exactly what he hoped to do. He steamrolled the room a bit. And then, at the end of the cabinet, you saw the loyalists coming out there and saying what they had to say. Some people who think he should go stayed in and tried to talk to him, tried to have a conversation with him, but he declined to do that. So we are left with the situation at the moment where he has issued this put up or shut up decree to effectively Wes Streeting as the, it seems, only plausible candidate who might want to run against him, which he's saying is what any candidate would have to do. And Wes Streeting faces the choice of, does he really want to get 81 plus nominations and take on Keir Starmer? It's something he's previously said he doesn't want to do. We are at an extraordinary position here.
Let's face it, Wes Streeting's not going to have a better opportunity. The fact of the matter is that Andy Burnham, they're going to line up Andy Burnham to run somewhere. Everybody, including Reform, you've got Reform, the Green Party, you'll have the Lib Dems, you'll have the Conservative Party, throwing the absolute kitchen sink at that local election. I don't think Andy Burnham's going to win whatever seat that is easily, no matter what. So what will happen is that naturally, if they're going to wait it out until Andy Burnham could become an MP for Wes Streeting, Starmer and Andy Burnham to fight each other, if that's the reality they want to live in, I don't think that makes sense for Wes Streeting. I think he needs to act now. Now, if he isn't acting now, then I don't really understand what's his point. You know, you've been playing this game of politics for a long while now, chap. You probably need to get your ass into gear and start playing. Actually start moving some pieces around. Otherwise, you're not going to become PM. And literally, the only thing people know about you is that you keep saying you want to be PM.
Properly chaotic. We were talking last night about how some of the soundings which Keir Starmer was doing of his cabinet had echoes of Margaret Thatcher in 1990. This moment has an echo of the phase just before that, when Margaret Thatcher said, I fight to win, when everybody else could look at the numbers and think, well, hang on, you're not going to win.
And he's got his fingers in his ears because he's not prepared to listen.
One backbencher said today, he is so stubborn, I actually worry for his mental health. This is someone who used to have a career as a nurse. But I also met some loyalists who were saying there's 100 Labour MPs who are already ready to sign a notice saying that saying that Keir Starmer must stay, and they're going to try and outnumber the people on the other side of the argument. Maybe we'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is usually what happens on the green when there's a big political moment, and sometimes we have the presence of mind to wear the right microphones, but not today, I'm afraid. Now, one Labour MP who wants the Prime Minister to step down is Graham Stringer, who joins us from Manchester. Graham Stringer, what do you want to happen?
Well, not this. The argument for keeping Keir Starmer in number 10 is to remove him would be chaotic. I doubt that we could have anything more chaotic than this. It's exposed a split cabinet. It's exposed the fact that there is little support. There is some support, but little support within the Parliamentary Labour Party for Keir to stay on. We need either of him to announce a timetable, which he's saying he's not going to do, or somebody should put up and let the party and the Parliamentary Labour Party have a serious election as to who should replace Keir. He's lost support. He's moving from the tragedy of a decent man who's failed in the job, failed to deliver, into a comedy.
Right, but the thing that is stopping people from challenging him is this old fear that if you're the one who stands up, then you will be punished by the party and you will not inherit the crown. Do you think that rule still applies, or do you think those people who do think they could do a better job, who are in Parliament, whether that's Ed Miliband or Wes Streeting or Angela Rayner, should just say, I'm challenging?
Yeah, I mean, it's a criterion as to whether they're fit to the lead. It's not quite exactly an analogous situation, But Tony Blair, when faced with the death of John Smith and an election, didn't say, after you go, he just said, I think I could do a job of leading the Labour Party and becoming Prime Minister, and he went for it. And if any of the people you've just mentioned, or others, want to be Prime Minister, then one of the tests is, have they got the confidence and the bravery to say, no, I am going to stand against Keir?
No, I don't think Wes Streeting does. But I was interested to see what was Andy Burnham's key statistics. You know, as being Mayor of Manchester, what has he achieved? So I asked Grok. I think there's a couple of things here that's quite useful to know. For instance, that Greater Manchester has been the UK's fastest growing city region economy in recent years. It's grown about 3.1% annually from 2015 to 2023, which is double the UK average. That's not too bad. Public transport's improved. He's managed to improve the punctuality. He's also improved the sort of fare caps, or maybe he's put in place fare caps, which is a benefit to people. He's created a bed every night scheme, rough sleeping down 42%. Crime is a bit mixed, and he's popular locally. The thing is, and I think this is the issue that maybe political parties don't understand, is that we're not really going through an election cycle, or even a period in this country's history that requires somebody who can do local stuff well, or can run a city well. We just need somebody who understands that you can just get stuff done if you're the Prime Minister and you've got the MPs behind you, and you need to get the things done. Rather than talk, you need to act. And also you need to act in a way that the people of this country want you to act, meaning that if the people overwhelmingly want lower immigration, you need to do that. It doesn't matter if... It should almost not matter now if you're Labour or you're the Conservatives, because the country has voted for that so many times now for about 20 years that you should probably just say, well, I'm going to have to just get on and do it. And then, for instance, deregulation, that needs to be a common theme, and so on and so forth. My opinion is that, sure, Andy Burnham on the face of it might be a good candidate. I just don't think he's the man for the moment, and that's more important. But that's just my opinion.
I mean, one of the arguments around this that is going to be deployed up by people on all sides is, you know, you're the one who's causing damage both to the Labour Party and the country. Look at what's happening on the bond markets, look at what's happening to the economy, and look how people are looking at the Labour Party. Do you think Keir Starmer, who has been so far accusing his opponents of jeopardising politics and economics, is also now guilty of that?
Absolutely, that's the first point I made. He's exposed. We've got a disunited cabinet. He's causing chaos. The bond markets are reacting, not hugely, but they are beginning to react to this. We've now got interest rates higher than after the appalling Liz Truss's brief go at being Prime Minister. So it's not just within the party.
But do you think it needs to be resolved quickly? Or, you know, is there realistically time for Andy Burnham to fight a by-election and for there to be a full-fledged leadership election? Or does this need to happen quickly now to avoid economic chaos growing?
The criterion I would use for that is there needs to be time so that policy as well as personality can be discussed. Waiting for somebody who has had two goes at trying to lead the Labour Party, may not win a by-election, would break his promise to the people of Greater Manchester to stay in that seat and open the door for reform or another party to take over. I can't think of a worse way of trying to sort out the chaos that Keir has created by not doing a good job as Prime Minister. That's sad, but not recognising he no longer has the confidence of the party. And what we found last Thursday was that he absolutely doesn't have the confidence of the electorate. And it's almost impossible to envisage him winning an election or even getting a decent vote.
And just briefly, I mean, are you saying that if there is a by-election to replace Andy Burnham as mayor in Greater Manchester, Labour would lose to reform?
I'm not saying would lose. If you look at the results in Greater Manchester, there is a very good chance that the door is opening to reform. Reform had good results in Greater Manchester. Obviously, I didn't want them to have good results, but you don't give your opponents the chance to get into
So
one.
as I've been trying to go through what's going on today, been creating some notes, okay? And you might find it's difficult to read my handwriting, but we'll quickly go through them. So Jess Phillips is gone. She resigned as a result of the fact that well, there's a load of different reasons, but the main concern was the fact that Keir Starmer wasn't willing to move on a motion or a bill that she had come up with, which basically prohibited or created software that would be downloaded onto everybody's phones that could allow essentially the government, but really it's AI software that could stop kids from uploading indecent pictures of themselves and blah blah blah. Obviously, Keir Starmer, well, it's not obvious, but Keir Starmer was delaying actually looking at and actually moving on that law or that regulation, and online people understood why they wanted to do that, and it was simply because it's going to just increase security concerns. You've got the government actually being able to look at what you're doing each day. I don't think it's a big deal, and interestingly, she actually decided that that when she resigned, she put her face on the letterhead. I mean, that isn't very smart. Beth Rigby, in my opinion, she's somewhat of a clown, but she had a funny moment outside Downing Street where every single minister came out and started talking to her. And they all were towing the line one by one, something that's never really happened before. I think that was important because obviously Keir Starmer was willing to fight back. Andy Burnham, he's got things going in his favour. He's got a good record in Manchester. He's grown the economy. He's reduced homelessness, and he's improved the local public transportation. He's also very popular with the Labour Party. He's got about a 48% approval rating versus Keir Starmer's 26%. The issue is he failed to be PM twice before. So why would you ever think that he's going to pass the third time round? And he's also got the issue with reform. So we'll put that there. He's got an issue with reform. Wes Streeting, I haven't got much to say on him other than it's now or never for him, chap. You need to start moving. Otherwise, people are going to move against you. Starmer, well, he won't leave. He won't leave in a dignified way. He's clinging on to power. He acts like a dictator, and he's going to keep moving like a dictator. So we should just assume that from now until the moment he's chucked out, he's going to do things that are going to embolden him and ensure that he doesn't give in. The thing that benefits him is this point right here. Okay, this is the main point. MPs are not united behind one candidate. They're not all for Wes Streeting. I'm sure some of them are going to be for Mahmood. Some of them are going to be for even Ed Miliband or people like that. And that strengthens him because at the end of the day, it's not clear who these MPs, if there was a sort of leadership battle, whether they would actually back someone other than Starmer. Because the next candidate might not be better, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe, but that might be the case. So my thoughts: how many more PMs do we really need? How long will it take before we actually get somebody who's going to make the changes that we want? I'm worried that that's not even going to be reform. Okay. Cheers for that. I'm worried that's not even going to be reform, because I don't think reform policies are as extreme as they need to be. And also, I'm worried about this. The economy is just going to be hit. The bond yields are now at 5% for the 10-year. That's not good. Definitely not good for mortgages or homeowners. It's certainly not good for borrowing, obviously. So these are things we need to look out for. Anyway, back to what we were doing.
The positions in this country, which would enable them to be on the television, it would give them a platform that is not available elsewhere.
OK. Graham Stringham, thank you very much indeed for your time. Well, the Cabinet Office Minister, Chris Ward, joins us now. He's a close political ally of the Prime Minister and was Keir Starmer's Parliamentary Private Secretary. You heard Graham Stringer there. You can now see that there are more than 81 Labour MPs prepared to sign a challenge to him.
A meeting between Keir Starmer and union leaders this afternoon has just been cancelled. Maybe that's telling, I don't know.
Why is he fighting this? He's turning this into undignified chaos, isn't he?
Look, I think the Prime Minister's been really clear that his job is to govern. We were sent here to govern the country, and that's what he wants to do. He was sent here with a very clear mandate to do that. And what I say to colleagues is, look, we're all disappointed by the results last week. You know, I lost councillors in my constituency, and lots of others did. We're all hurting from that. But the way to rebuild that is to bring the party back together and to focus on what people care about, which is the cost of living, which is the NHS, and which is crime and safer communities. That is what the Prime Minister is trying to do. That's what the Cabinet talked about this morning, and that's why, as Gary was saying in your previous piece, that was the focus of the Cabinet. And I would say to colleagues also, we spent 14 years in opposition. We lost 4 general elections. We've been in government for less than 2 years. The country will not think kindly of a Labour Party that tears itself apart in the way the Conservative Party did.
I mean, that argument has kind of gone. The party is tearing itself apart. 81 MPs or more have called for him to go. Cabinet ministers have called for him to go. There's been a ministerial resignation. It is obvious that he cannot bring the party back together now. They're not all going to suddenly change their minds.
Well, Labour has 400 MPs, so you're not citing the majority, you are citing a part of the party. But I'm not saying there aren't challenges, and Keir recognised that yesterday on Monday, that you need to bring the party back together, and we need to focus on the challenge we've got ahead. That's what the King's Speech will be about tomorrow, and that we need to remember that our fight here is against the chance of a reform government, and that we need a united Labour Party on the pitch to do that. That's what the Prime Minister tried to set out yesterday, and it's what he'll set out tomorrow.
So if the bond markets continue to be nervous and borrowing costs go up and people at home are sitting there wondering what's going to happen to their fuel prices, you know, whose fault is it? Are you saying it's just the Challenger's fault, that Keir Starmer doesn't bear responsibility for this too?
Bond markets really like instability, and what you've seen in the last 48 hours has fed into that. There is no doubt about that. And I would also point out this is the beginning of that. If you have a leadership contest, that will last months. That will lead to even greater instability. Well, okay. I think the Labour Party will, as pretty much everybody has said, members will need a voice. Everyone will want to say in it. That will take months. That will lead to huge instability in the economy. And people's focus at the moment, frankly, my members, my constituents, people who I talk to, their focus is not on the internal machinations of the Labour Party. Their focus is on cost of living, NHS and safer communities. Yeah. And that's what the Labour Party should be talking about, not itself.
But you talk about that as if all of that stuff's going fine, and that this is just a row about Labour internal politics. The reason there is a row about Labour internal politics is because you haven't fixed anything. You know, the change is too small by your own admission, and all of those problems are still much bigger 2 years on than they should be.
I just saw this tweet. Sorry, I'm going to have to keep interrupting. Chaka Una just walked into number 10. Do you remember when everyone was saying that he was the next Barack Obama? It was the British Obama. Oh my God! Don't make me laugh.
People haven't fixed anything. I'm afraid that's nonsense. Waiting list to falling, waiting list to falling. If you let me speak, waiting list is falling, child poverty is falling, wages are rising, employment rights being improved. We are renationalising railways. I could go on. Immigration is falling.
None of that is fixed.
We've had less than 2 years, Christian. We've had less than 2 years. We've made big progress in that time. But let me tell you what will not fix it: spending several months in a divisive and destabilising internal battle. And that's what the Prime Minister is trying to make the case for. And that's what the King's Speech will set out tomorrow. We've already passed 50 bills in the first session, and tomorrow we'll set out the new ones that we will try and pass as we go forward, as we try and renew the country. But look, I'm not saying the results on Thursday weren't a challenge. They were very upsetting, challenging and difficult. We all lost good councillors. But the message I've had from my members and my councillors is focus on mending the country and focus on delivering the mandate you were sent to govern. Don't start talking to yourself and tear each other apart.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Well, as we've been hearing, the markets have not been reacting well this morning to the turmoil in Westminster.
Wait, hold on.
Or not.
Ah, accidentally got rid of it. Shoot me.
Let's go to our economics correspondent, Helia Ebrahimi, who's in the studio. Helia.
Well, Krish, political instability again.
We are witnessing what really might be the beginning of the end of Keir Starmer, and maybe even this government.
Maybe.
Because, frankly, his potential replacements terrify me for reasons I'll come back to in a minute. But with 2 ministers now having resigned, including a housing minister and even Jess Phillips, which I'll come back to in a second, this morning the situation in Westminster has gone from serious to near virtual collapse. Because, as reported in The Telegraph, 85 and counting Labour MPs are now calling on Keir Starmer to resign, or at least set out a timetable for his resignation. And this includes the Home Secretary herself, Shabana Mahmood, along with other cabinet ministers who went into number 10 to tell Keir Starmer to set out a timetable to go. The First Minister was a junior housing minister to resign, and now Jess Phillips has also resigned. Let me just pull up her letter, because only really the very bottom bit is of relevance here. She says, in summary, she cannot continue to serve as a minister under the current leadership. So that is a direct snipe at Keir Starmer, and I'm going to talk about it in this video. But there's also questions come up as to, can he trigger a general election and all this sort of stuff. So I'll discuss a few of those things, a few of those questions. But before that, please do hit that subscribe button. It is free. It's the big button down below if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet. I depend on you to keep this channel going and to keep this channel growing. I will bring you the truth, the brutal and over again in the comments, and I've seen on X, and there's a few different ways of looking at it. So it's not an entirely straightforward answer. So the question is, does Keir Starmer actually have the power to call a general election? Can he just put this out to the country? Now, the answer is somewhat fascinating in a constitutional perspective, because in the UK, we have this weird thing where the Constitution is not entirely written down. It is sort of bolted together through bits of tradition, bits of legislation, bits of protocol, bits of structure, separation of powers, the monarchy, this, that, the other, and something between the goalposts. So the answer is both a short and a long answer, which is why you always come to my channel and why hopefully you subscribe. Now, the short answer is yes, he can call a general election. But it's not quite that simple, because the longer answer involves over 1,000 years of our history of the monarchy and a theoretical power that hasn't been used in about 200 years. And the scenario here is where if ever the king says no, then it might actually put the monarchy as an institution at risk. Let me explain. So the basic position is this. Under the Dissolution and Calling of Parliament Act 2022, which was it was an interesting period between 2011 and 2022, which changed things. But since this act, the power to dissolve Parliament, which is essentially what triggers a general election, so dissolving Parliament is no more. That dissolution process triggers a general election. It is a prerogative power exercised by the sovereign, which, of course, at the moment is the king. So the Prime Minister himself cannot dissolve Parliament. He doesn't have the legal authority to do that. But what he does do is have the constitutional right to request that the king dissolve Parliament on his advice. And then the king grants that request. Parliament is dissolved and a general election is triggered and called. So that's it. That's the mechanism of how this works. So in practical, real terms, yes, Keir Starmer can call a general election right now, today, or in a year from now, or whatever. But it should be at least every 5 years. That's what the change in the law was. So he could walk into Buckingham Palace this afternoon, ask the king to say, would you please dissolve Parliament because my government's collapsing? And, within weeks, we would all be back at the general election polls once more. Now, importantly, he doesn't need the consent or even to discuss this with the cabinet himself. He doesn't need the consent of any backbench MPs, doesn't need to go to a vote in Parliament, doesn't need to go to a debate, nothing else. He just needs to ask. But what could the king say and what could go wrong? I'll be back with that in just a moment. Just a quick one. There is a high likelihood that you've recently booked and you're about to go on a holiday. In fact, it will activate at your destination. You don't need to wait for a SIM card and says, would you please dissolve Parliament? It's all collapsing. Let's just have a general election. What if the king said no? Could the king say no? That's where this gets really interesting, both technically, legally, and constitutionally. The king could, in theory, refuse. The sovereign has what we call reserve powers. These are powers that, whilst almost never exercised, still exist in our largely unwritten constitution. The power to refuse dissolution of Parliament is one of them. But here's the thing. that not only would that cause a lot of criticism of our king and the monarchy in general, and perhaps, turn people against the monarchy, whereas they might not otherwise. But the last time a sovereign refused a prime minister's request to dissolve parliament, and you'll have to look this up to believe me here, but this was 1839, when Queen Victoria refused Sir Robert Peel. And even then, that case is genuinely disputed by constitutional historians. So what we're talking about here is a power that's not been exercised in the lifetime of anyone who's alive today.
Don't want to change this, but look, Keir Starmer calling in the big guns. Change UK, the independent group for change. God, we've had some moments in this country recently, haven't we?
Not in the lifetime of their parents, not even their grandparents, and we're going back nearly 200 years. So the modern constitutional convention is pretty much settled. The king acts on the advice of the prime minister. He doesn't refuse a dissolution. That is usually the end of it. But why? Why are we in this position? Why is it the case that the king just does what he's asked to do and, not exercise any kind of power? Some people criticize the monarchy for that. I don't. I think we have a tradition, and it's a bit like the wig over there. If I can point to it there, it was originally, a fashion thing, and then it became an anonymity thing, and then it just became tradition, and then it's been tweaked and changed, and, sometimes we wear it, sometimes we don't, and a lot of people ask, actually, about the wig here, which cases and which courts and whatever do we wear this in, just to go on a bit of a tangent, because I know some people like that. Well, in most criminal trials, we wear the wig, but not in the magistrate's court. And, play that out for a minute. A prime minister who is democratically elected, leading obviously the largest party in the House of Commons, goes to the monarch and says,
I don't think enough MPs.
This moment is critical.
What?
It is time to reform our system to protect.
I want to see what's going on here.
Party and either their lack of results or their lack of clear, distinct messaging about what they are doing to change people's lives. What is it that's at fault here in your mind?
Yeah, put it this way, Sarah Jane, when it comes to those local elections, I'm up in Scotland, it is a little bit different. I'm in Edinburgh now. But the fact that I'm on as a Labour voice today and I didn't even vote for them the other day, I couldn't bring myself to vote for them. That tells you everything that you need to know. And people will say, Keir Starmer's allies will say this is factional. It's about the left kicking up a fuss, about the socialist campaign group. I do not care about any of that. I don't care about any of those people. I don't care about any of the factions. This is about trying to have a progressive force in British government, of which the Labour Party is the only current one in government, right, that I think can keep a government. But every single day that Keir Starmer languishes in Downing Street is another day that majority wastes away. And this is just a tale of wasted opportunity. And you can probably tell by the fact that I'm animated right now, Sarah Jane, but I'm frustrated by this because many people campaigned for, over a decade to get these people elected and to get them in that building behind you. And so that change could happen, real change in people's lives. And we haven't seen that. But even more so than that, we have the threat of reform. And I believe that's an anti-democratic threat. I don't trust Nigel Farage with the democracy of this country. I really don't. But every day that Keir Starmer wastes away and doesn't move aside or doesn't set out a timeline for someone else to take the reins, that's another day that Nigel Farage benefits from. And we just can't let that happen as progressives.
Well, it is 4 o'clock. I am Sarah Jane Mee. We are live here in Downing Street, just down the road from Big Ben, where Sir Keir Starmer is fighting on, despite growing calls from Labour MPs for him to go. As it stands this afternoon, 85 MPs have now come out publicly urging him to quit, including 3 ministers who have resigned today from government. This morning, which seems like a long time ago now, the Prime Minister chairs a crucial cabinet meeting where he was reportedly not challenged by those cabinet ministers around the table. Afterwards, a defiant PM declared that he was getting on with the job as the process to remove him had not been triggered. Well, this is what Sir Keir Starmer told his cabinet at the start of this morning's meeting. As I said yesterday, I take responsibility for these election results and I take responsibility for delivering the change we promised. The past 48 hours have been destabilising for government, and that has a real economic cost for our country and for families. The Labour Party has a process for challenging a leader, and that has not been triggered. The country expects us to get on with governing. That is what I am doing and what we must do as a cabinet. Well, that wasn't enough to convince the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, who is the most prominent figure so far to call for Sir Keir Starmer to go. In a damning resignation letter this afternoon, she says it is deeds, not words, that matter.
I tell you what, I've just read this and I literally completely agree, which is that, you know, we went through the Conservative Party who lost Cameron and then thought they had loads of big dogs in Theresa May and Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, and they all failed consecutively. And then now we're doing it again with Labour, who their big dog was Keir Starmer. They may have Andy Burnham in the wings, but regardless, it's going to be a load of nobodies trying to take control and try to keep this going for as long as possible. The issue is that we're going to expect reform to take over next. Everyone expects it in some way. The issue is that is literally the same problem, but worse. Farage, everybody knows, everybody thinks he can step up to the job, maybe, I don't know. You'd hope he can at least get the stuff that he's been campaigning on right, like the immigration and lower regulation. And the issue is that if he, as the rumours suggest, doesn't actually want to run the country and actually passes on majority of responsibility to people like Zaya Youssef or Richard Tice, we're in big trouble, because I don't think these people know what they're doing. I don't trust them. I just don't think they're first-rate types of people. I just don't. So I think we're almost always at the mercy of these characters. We elect, basically, I know it sounds ridiculous, but we do basically elect a prime minister in this country, a president. The way majority of people vote is based off of the leader of the party, and it has got nothing to do with anything else. Now, you may vote differently, but majority of people just vote based off of what they read in the news, and more often than not, what they read and see is the prime minister and what they say. Anyway, let's go back to this.
He must go. 100 MPs signing a statement saying no, he's got to stay.
The Prime Minister fights back and is I'm smiling, actually. I've just spotted Larry on the doorstep.
We haven't seen him at all today. Here he is.
No, he was here yesterday.
Oh. Public backing, I think.
If Sir Keir Starmer goes, Larry will be on his 7th Prime Minister.
Oh, gosh.
David Cameron was the first. What struck me about, first of all, this morning in the Cabinet meeting was the wording of the Prime Minister's statement that you just read out. I thought very legalistic. Now, his brief, Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, was in here last night, and I wouldn't be surprised if he drafted this, because the Labour Party has a process for challenging a leader that's not been triggered, and he said, and all the ministers have come out and said that process hasn't started yet. Process, and it's a real Keir Starmer thing. The letter of the law. I mean, it's like a lawyer who says, if you. My client has not been charged, therefore you need to release him. So the Prime Minister has been released temporarily. He said, look, the process hasn't started, so we fight on. I mean, Margaret Thatcher famously said, we fight to win, and then quit the next day. I mean, there have been so many Prime Ministers over the years who've battled on. I mean, Gordon Brown's who was hired by the Prime Minister at the weekend. That seems like months ago now, doesn't it?
Feels like a stupid decision.
And Harriet Harman. But Gordon Brown faced all sorts of coups. There was a Gordon Brown coup, of course, that forced Tony Blair into announcing a timetable. He served for another 9 months or so before he went in 2007. But, I mean, I was here from, 5-ish till gone 10 o'clock last night, and it looked grim for the Prime Minister then, because we learned Shabana Mahmood had gone in, told him the game's up. When I was here, John Healey arrived, Steve Reid arrived. Steve Reid's a loyalist. He was the first one out after Cabinet today to back the Prime Minister. John Healey was talking about, we're told, about the national, the needs of the country, stability and all that. We now know also that possibly Yvette Cooper had some advice for the Prime Minister. We're not quite sure what. But clearly it looked very grim late last night. The Prime Minister either went to bed thinking, oh my God, I've had it, or my God, I'm going to fight back. And he's gone for that option, hasn't he, today? As you've just said, a lot of his allies have obviously been ordered to sign a letter backing him. But it was about, I don't know, how 4 or 5 ministers came out and backed him. And of course, the real great bit of the soap opera this morning of Cabinet was when Wes Streeting came out that door there and scurried down the street without saying a word. I think we might be able to see some of that now.
Yeah, let's see some of that. Here's Wes Streeting.
Wes Streeting, did you call on Starmer to resign?
Yeah.
Lisa Nandy.
And here we have Lisa Nandy and James Murray.
PM to stand down. Did you ask the Prime Minister to stand down? David Lammy, can you come and talk on Sky News? David Lammy, is the PM fighting on?
Some cabinet ministers very tight-lipped, others volunteering to speak to journalists here, which is quite remarkable, actually. You normally have to cajole them or shout questions at them, but they were like 4 or 5 of them. Let's have a look. Coming up,
Asian women winners and watching 2010 election coverage, and you've got a jump scare from 2 newly elected MPs.
The Prime Minister has my full support. The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened, so we all intend to get on with our jobs, and that's what I'm going to do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
What did the Cabinet say to him, sir? Peter Kyle, would you speak to Sky News, sir? Would you come and speak to Sky News? Peter Kyle, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
How was Cabinet, and what did everyone say when Keir Starmer said a leadership race had not been triggered?
Well, it's the fact. We've had a very purposeful cabinet meeting talking about the big issues facing our economy and society. Nothing has been triggered. I'm about to go off to Brussels to continue working with Brussels to deepen a relationship, to benefit Britain. We are working hard on the big issues that are facing the country, and Keir is showing really steadfast leadership.
Sure,
and I respect that.
Would you repeat it? Did anyone challenge him? Liz Kendall, would you come and talk to us briefly? Thank you. Liz Kendall, what happened
Or is
in
that
the
just me?
Cabinet?
Doesn't feel like work.
The Prime Minister talked about the challenges we face as a country, the crisis in the Middle East, the impact on the cost of living here. And
I'll tell you the other thing. I just saw this. It's quite funny, really, because it's true. This feels like a whole generation ago, doesn't it? The whole Cameron era, the Cameron-Boris era. I remember Cameron. I actually really thought Cameron was a fantastic politician, actually. I mean, I don't think I actually realised how good he was until all of the carnage happened following his resignation. But he was really funny. He was smart. He got things done. He seemed to have a complete control over all of his MPs, even if all of his MPs were his friends when he was at uni. Like, for instance, George Osborne, Michael Gove, etc. And Boris Johnson, for instance. But you just look back on it and you think those were the good days. If Cameron could have just done what people wanted him to do, we wouldn't have had to have suffered with Theresa May or Boris Johnson, or we wouldn't have had to suffer with all the other third-rate, second-class types of MPs like Boris Johnson and now Keir Starmer, right? But you know, that's what happens in this world. No.
Nobody putting their head above the parapet to trigger that process, well, publicly at least for the moment.
Let's answer the question that Beth put to Pat McFadden there. Did anybody challenge the Prime Minister at the meeting this morning? We're told that the PM read out this statement, but there was no debate, so they didn't get a chance to challenge it. Shabana Mahmood, who was in there telling him the game was up last night, apparently did not speak at the meeting. Wes Streeting did speak, but was talking about the NHS and other issues, not about the leadership. But Wes Streeting, all eyes are on Wes Streeting now. Now, we understand that the reason he came out after the others, because he wanted to talk to the Prime Minister after the meeting, but was rebuffed, we're told. And he scurried. Now, we saw Peter Kyle there. Peter Kyle came out with a wonderful anecdote on Sky News this week. about how the pair of them had gone to watch The Devil Wears Prada 2 at the cinema. And Peter Kyle said, I think it was to Sophie Ridge, you don't go to the cinema and if you're about to launch a leadership bid. But I'm told, I've not seen The Devil Wears Prada, but I'm told by colleagues who have, that it involves a coup.
It does. A changing of the guard. Yeah, a changing of the guard in a glossy magazine. So, you know, and again, somebody being ousted against their will. So there's a subplot there. Peter Kyle didn't think too hard about, you know, what that message would reveal by telling us the film title.
It was interesting. Obviously, the ones who came out and spoke to journalists here, fairly predictable. Loyal allies like Steve Reed, Pat McFadden. What was significant, of course, was the ones who didn't come and speak to journalists. Didn't hear a peep from Ed Miliband, did we? He's supposed to have told the PM a couple of weeks ago the game's up. We didn't hear from Rachel Reeves, who's cancelled an event today.
We didn't see Shabana Mahmood.
No,
we didn't see her go in or out.
No. I mean, last night she didn't come into 10 Downing Street via the front door. Quite a few of the ministers who saw the PM last night we didn't see here at the front.
Yeah.
Who else we didn't hear from? Yvette Cooper, Shabana Mahmood you've mentioned. And so they're obviously keeping their options open, perhaps. Perhaps that's a cynical view, but I mean, we could have had more. I mean, it was 4 or 5 cabinets, 20 or 30. I mean, the one who stayed talking to journalists for the longest was Baroness Jenny Chapman, one of the Prime Minister's closest allies. She was his number 2 when he was Shadow Brexit Secretary. He used to be MP for Darlington, lost her seat, now in the Lords and now a minister. So the fight back is on. And it's a bit like John Major when he said, put up or shut up. And what happened then was that John Redwood challenged him, and of course he saw off that challenge.
I mean, Starmer can't fight on. I want to quickly just show you this from the Financial Times. I'll zoom in because I don't think I'm logged in. Days in office for recent Labour and Conservative Prime Ministers. I mean, it's just crazy. I love looking at charts like this simply because it really illustrates what we've gone through. And really, from that end of that Cameron period, how nuts everything went through. Like May and the Brexit saga, the Grenfell saga, the Johnson saga with COVID, and the Boris wave. You had Truss's whole debacle with how she dealt with the budget. Then you had Sunak. He tried his best. Was it good enough? I don't really know. I think a lot of the sort of positive immigration stuff we're seeing now, a lot of that was what Sunak had begun implementing just before he resigned. And now Starmer, you know, he was trying to put into place really draconian systems and laws into place. And to be honest, you can see why he's gone. You know, he wanted digital IDs, for instance. He wasn't willing to stop the boats. He wanted to close the EU integration. We had the summer of discontent last year and the year before. He was just an awful, awful prime minister. So I think Wes Streeting's got a chance. Is my opinion. What do you guys think?
Slightly this afternoon. It's around 85, I think, is the current count. Let's bring in Ali Fortescue with more details. Ali.
Hello, yes, that's right. These are the 85 MPs, or the 80 or so MPs that want Keir Starmer out. That is significant because when you pass 80 MPs, 81 is the number that someone would need backing them if they were going to go for the leadership. That includes them, so it really is 80. But that is a significant number. Once you pass that, who knows what will happen? And these are some of those faces. Let's start up here because this is where it all began. Catherine West, the name that became famous over the weekend, the backbench MP who said that if the cabinet don't act and do something about Keir Starmer, she would put her hat into the ring, and that has triggered this extraordinary series of events. All these names that came out quite quickly. A lot of these are what you would call the usual suspects, the left of the Labour Party, the Socialist Campaign Group, people like Andy MacDonald, Nadia Whitten, Richard Bergen, Clive Lewis. At this stage, I don't think number 10 were wildly worried because these are, you know, people that they might expect were not the biggest fans of the Prime Minister. This is where things became a bit more difficult because this was after the Prime Minister's speech, a lot of these people. That was watched by many people, seen as a kind of make or break moment. And then we saw MPs really, what strikes me is that they're different ages. They came into Parliament at different times. They're from different wings of the party. So, you know, you've got people like Clive Betts, the most senior Labour MP. He is not someone you would expect to come out and go against Keir Starmer. Fred Thomas, Luke Meyer, these are 2024 intake. Chris Curtis,
No.
For me, that was one of the biggest moments
Sam
of
Carling.
yesterday, because he is head of the Labour Growth group, really influential
What will we
group
do?
of MPs, not someone you would expect to speak out lightly. But let's go over here, because this is when things became really tricky, when we started to see those ministerial moves. Ministers, or PPSs as they're known, so assistants to ministers, they started to resign. Joe Morris, Tom Rutland, 4 of them resigned, 6 of them called on Keir Starmer to go. Joe Morris, I should say, that's Wes Streeting's PPS. And then this morning, Miatta Fahnbulleh, Minister, Housing Minister, really big moment, and probably the biggest moment of the day, really, when it came to people calling for the Prime Minister to go. Jess Phillips, a name so many people recognise. She, of course, ran for the leadership.
They recognise her, not for good reasons.
Seen as a real media performer, someone everyone recognises. She is gone. She has resigned her position in the Home Office. And then Alex Davies-Jones as well. That one really surprised me because she has been pretty loyal to the Prime Minister. So what happens now? Well, these are the names of the people who are calling for the Prime Minister to go. But what about those that could replace him? We are not there yet. But let's have a little look at who those runners and riders could be with the next image. Here we go. A lot of questions riding
Who is
on
Wes Streeting?
this man, Wes Streeting, the Health
I know
Secretary.
who he
Will
is,
he
but-
be the first to go over the top? He is seen as someone on the right of the party, but recently he's tacked left. He's said, people close to him have said that he's not plotting, but he is planning should a vacancy become available. Lots of people think this is his moment. Andy Burnham, we talk about him so much. He actually can't even go for it right now, so he would favour a longer timetable because he'd have to get back into Parliament via a by-election, probably. Angela Rayner, former Deputy PM, widely seen as someone who would throw her hat in the ring if required. Allies say Shabana Mahmood, as John was saying, someone who was in Number 10 last night, asking the Prime Minister, we understand, to set out a timetable. She is seen as a good operator on the right of the party, which might make things tricky with the membership. Ed Miliband, he said he doesn't want it. A lot of people want him to stand.
He's a fucking
But
nut
will
job.
we see a kind of steadying force, a familiar face, someone like
These are
Yvette
all just
Cooper?
nobodies.
We could well see someone that is not on here, or that we haven't
Angela
even
Rayner's
thought
thick
about
as
these
shit.
leadership
And by the way, on the Burnham front even, I asked Grok, does anything legally prevent a non-MP from being PM? No, there's no legal barrier. So yes, he could just be Prime Minister without being the Member of Parliament. Everyone's known that's been the fact for a long while.
Races are so unexpected. Look at David Cameron, look at Jeremy Corbyn. What would actually happen if someone did put their hat in the ring? Well, let's look at the process, shall we? Here we go. So this is the first option. Someone launches a leadership challenge. They need 81 MPs. As I say, it's 81, including themselves, to back them. Starmer is automatically back on the ballot. And then all the other candidates would also be in the race. And then you get to the vote. So they're on the ballot, and then the members and affiliates vote. What is the other option? Well, if Keir Starmer decides that he has had enough, he wants to effectively give up, this is all too much, he resigns, he could agree to set a timetable that would help someone like Andy Burnham. Then the process would effectively be the same. Or he decides he wants to go immediately. I think that is probably quite unlikely. In that situation, the NEC would appoint an interim leader, so someone would be in charge in the interim, and then it's effectively the same process. 81 MPs needed to stand, members and affiliates vote. So that's the process. Those are the runners and riders. Those are the 80 MPs plus who want Keir Starmer gone. Whatever happens next is anyone's guess, Sarah Jane.
Ali, thank you. Ali Fortescue there with the latest. We are now up to 86 MPs publicly calling for the Prime Minister to go. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is rifling through his book of Who is Who in Westminster to find out who number 86 is.
Jen Craft, C-R-A-F-T, MP for Thurrock, a Labour gain for the Conservatives. I was at the Thurrock count on Friday
Reform,
when Reform got 45 councillors, Labour 2 and Conservative 2. Anyway, she won the seat from the Conservatives, Reform in second place. She describes herself as a stay-at-home mum and carer for my disabled daughter who has Down syndrome. She's a campaign for disability rights. and former civil servant. She used to work for Margaret Hodge, former MP for Barking, was a minister. She's local to Thurrock. Mother was a shop steward.
Why is this relevant?
She beat the for the selection.
Well, unfortunately for her, she's not going to keep Thurrock, because unless Labour radically go right wing and start deporting people, then guess what? You've lost Thurrock. Anywhere in sort of the area of Essex is going to go fully reform.
Former leader of the Labour group on Thurrock Council. I have to say, I'm not going to be rude or churlish, but she's not exactly high profile.
OK, I'll be the judge of that. Slightly rude, little bit churlish, but that's OK, John, that's politics, right?
Sort of unnecessary
right,
to you,
let's
stupid
talk to
bellend.
former Labour Party political advisor,
What was the point in that?
Wilson. Max, we're now at 86. I mean, the number was going up quickly. It's now a constant drip.
He's gone. Starmer's gone.
Drip.
We know it.
Where do you think it takes us?
I think this drip, drip, drip keeps going, and I think it's going to keep on for some time. And the idea being to put as much political pressure on the Prime Minister as is possible until it's not sustainable anymore. And I think that at the moment we're in the foothills of that, but it will soon get much, much worse. And I think that for now, the Prime Minister's strategy is to shore up his position, to project strength, to play for time and talk about the timing challenges that affect all of the potential other leadership candidates. But at some point, I think the dam is going to break and this political pressure is going to tell.
Yeah, it's almost like death by 1,000 paper cuts, isn't it, in terms of the amount of people slowly coming out publicly. But there are two routes here for the Prime Minister, isn't there, really, in terms of resignations. We've had 3 ministerial resignations. A lot of people are looking at cabinet members to see if one of those will go, because then it really does start something big. So there is that route where he may resign because he has lost the confidence, or there is this process that we've heard about from the Prime Minister and his allies today, and that has not been triggered. Can you see, are either of those routes, like going down those routes within the next 24, 48 hours?
Yeah, they're certainly possible. Both routes are possible. I think that the idea at the moment is that, to use that phrase of yours again, the drip, drip, drip. And I think that the ministerial resignations haven't come in one big burst. They are steady. And I think that the idea is that the cabinet want to see, well, they want a little bit of political cover from as many backbench MPs as possible, but also from middle-ranking ministers as well. So they have got the justification, if you like, the political cover to be able to then put their own private pressure on the Prime Minister. But I think that also the idea is that instead of all these resignations in one glut, by keeping the story going for as long as possible, the rival camps are trying to add that pressure until it's simply not survivable anymore for the Prime Minister. So, yeah, I think as things escalate, as things mount up, the next stage is certainly cabinet. But I think that also each of them will also, because they're in such important positions, they won't want to give those up easily by resigning. But for certain potential candidates to be able to take the next step, then some of them are going to have to do so at some point.
Yeah, there is no leadership contest as it stands. The Prime Minister said he's staying in the role, and the process to replace him hasn't been triggered yet. You know, 85 people coming out publicly is different to over 81 MPs standing behind a potential leadership contender to challenge the Prime Minister. So we're not in that territory yet, but the mood music, let's face it, isn't good. In terms of a potential credible leadership
Health Minister Zubir Ahmed has resigned from Keir Starmer's government.
In terms of replacing Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, there are several candidates, and it's very much in the public domain who those are likely to be. But I think that each of them. Excuse me?
Who do you think is the viable one?
Who are the viable ones? Well, several of the Well, it's in terms of the media conversation, there's been a lot about the soft left and hard left following Andy Burnham, and then the more centrist and more moderate Labour MPs pursuing Wes Streeting, and I think that's obviously in the public domain. But I think that each of those candidates face some really significant structural challenges here. Wes Streeting can't be seen to be going first, and so he is desperately trying to own the narrative that others have been kicking off this process without him. And for Andy Burnham, I think that he has a framing challenge around getting back here. And I'm not just talking about the electoral viability of winning a seat or some such, but actually the messaging that he's going to have to employ in any campaign, because he is going to have to be, in order to get elected in a seat in Manchester, he is going to have to be the anti-Starmer candidate that Nigel Farage and Reform have been framing the local elections around. But in doing so, which he'll need to in order to actually win a seat, he'll then need to convince all of his PLP colleagues that actually he is a Labour loyalist and that he is the one that can bring the party back together.
Thank you so much for your contribution. We're just going to interrupt for some breaking news because we understand a fourth government minister has resigned. Zabir Ahmed publicly resigning, saying he can no longer continue under Sir Keir Starmer's leadership of the Labour Party and indeed the country. So that is the fourth ministerial resignation. He is a health minister in the Labour government. As I said, fourth ministerial resignation following Miata Fambulla earlier on, Jess Phillips, the most well-known name to resign today. And we are just getting some information on that, John. Are you standing by? Have you got the information ready to go? Fourth ministerial
It's
resignation?
starting to look a bit more like a Wes Streeting plot now, isn't it? A lot of his allies. We've had his PPS, his Parliamentary Private Secretary, bag carrier yesterday. Now a minister from the Health Department. Zabir Ahmed is MP for Glasgow South West. He has worked in the NHS before he became a health minister. He was a consultant surgeon in the Scottish NHS, worked in London at the Royal Free, Guy's and St Thomas's, Great Ormond Street for children. He was also a volunteer surgeon in Pakistan, and he's the son of a cab driver. And he's also, as I say, got quite a medical background. Well, the idea that Wes Streeting has not talked to his former Parliamentary Private Secretary and his junior minister about this seems difficult to believe. Is this a Wes Streeting plot? It's starting to look like one.
Yeah, Dr Zabir Ahmed, Member of Parliament for Glasgow South West.
Won the seat from the SNP.
Yeah, he's written in his letter to the Prime Minister, it's with a heavy heart I write to inform you that I'm resigning from your government as Health Innovation Safety Minister. He said, but as I raise my gaze above the daily work of ministerial life, it is clear to see that whatever the magnitude of individual achievements and progress, they are now being dwarfed and undermined by a lack of values-driven leadership at the centre. It is clear from recent days that the public across the UK has now irretrievably lost confidence in you as Prime Minister. This was apparent in the recent Scottish Parliament elections, where on door after door, your name was specifically cited as the driving reason why Labour voters of 2024 would not vote for Scottish Labour in 2026. He goes on to say, I will be forever grateful for your decency and tireless work in turning our party around and imbibing in all of us a sense of national duty before party.
Right, we don't care about this guy. Right, look at this tweet. Taking our seats for the first time. This Keir Starmer's tweet, May 13th, 2015. Right? Almost 11 years ago to the day. Who's there? Wes Streeting, Catherine West, and of course Keir Starmer on the right. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Who would have known? 11 years later, they would be fighting it out. And then they've got this great tweet from Charlie here saying, classic case of you'll never be friends with people you hang out with at the first week of uni. Absolute banger. Right, back to things.
But in the last 24 hours or so, I don't know if Ali will tell us next time how many Scots there are on that big screen that she's got there, but quite a lot of Scots are amongst the ones who have backed the call for the PM to go. Obviously because, as he says in his letter, they're very bruised by the dreadful results for Labour in Scotland, the fact the SNP have won again, albeit they haven't quite got an overall majority at Holyrood, but a very bad night for Labour in Scotland. And I remember talking to Douglas Alexander, the Scotland Secretary, during a month or two ago, and he was saying what we've got to do in these elections in Scotland is to try and convince the voters
UK 10-year
that this is a referendum
bond
on
yield
the
is now
SNP
5.104%.
government, not on Keir Starmer's Westminster government.
It was almost
well, clearly
at,
they have failed to do that, and
so,
as he says
yeah, it's
there,
pretty bad at the moment.
Keir Starmer is clearly very unpopular in Scotland.
May get worse.
Mind you, quite a few prime ministers have been unpopular in Scotland over the years. Well, going right back to Margaret Thatcher, and clearly. He feels very bad about the way the elections have gone in Scotland, and that's why he's added his name to the list. He's the latest Scottish Member of Parliament to call for the PM to go. Quite a lot of them.
Yeah, and a lot of these resignation letters have talked about the Prime Minister's decency and values, but essentially said, you know, this is urgent now. We need to show the work. We need to get on with it. And you are not the man. So that is Abir Ahmed, MP for Glasgow South West. As we said, a health minister, someone close to Wes Streeting, resigning. The fourth ministerial resignation today here.
Bit of a chicken.
Outside Downing Street that we're hearing about, and 85 MPs publicly saying that they don't want the Prime Minister to stay on anymore. Earlier here on Sky News, we spoke to a big supporter of Sir Keir Starmer, Cabinet Office Minister Chris Ward, who said that now is not the time. No, he said now is the time, important distinction, now is the time to bring the party together, and time should not be wasted on a leadership contest.
I think the Prime Minister has been really clear that he was elected on a mandate to deliver change, and to deliver change that this country is crying out for. And we've made a start on that. We haven't gone quick enough. We haven't gone far enough in the first year. And that's what tomorrow will be about in the King's Speech. And what I'd say to colleagues really is the focus after these very difficult election results needs to be on bringing the party together and getting our message out to take on reform, not spending months in a divisive leadership contest, fighting amongst ourselves, which is what will be the consequence of that happening. So, look, I would hope everyone can see that the party needs to come together, and it needs to focus on what we're going to announce tomorrow in the King's Speech, and that will be taking the country forward.
Doesn't seem to be coming together, though, does it? 82 MPs at the
Problem
last
is
count saying that they don't have faith in the Prime Minister. They think he should go. You talk about the Prime Minister wanting to stay and deliver this mandate for change. I'll just reiterate some of the words from Jess Phillips, who resigned not just half an hour ago, saying, I want a Labour government to work and I will strive, as I always have, for its success and popularity. But I'm not seeing the change I think I and the country expect, and so cannot continue to serve as a minister under the current leadership. Jess Phillips not seeing the change. Those voting at the local elections haven't seen the change either. So I think it's fair to say quite a few people don't think the Prime Minister is delivering change.
This has been very honest and open that we need to change things more quickly, and we need to deliver the change we were elected on. And that's what I say he's going to set out tomorrow in the King's Speech. My challenge really will be whether people think spending months in an internal election focusing on ourselves is the best way to deliver that change and speed it up. I mean, I really think it isn't. I think the risks to the economy...
Has the Prime Minister become the problem? Has the Prime Minister become the problem? Because at the local elections, Reform, who made huge gains, Labour voters went from Labour to Reform and in part the Greens, but mainly Reform. Nigel Farage and Reform are campaigning on vote for us and get Sir Keir Starmer out. So has the Prime Minister effectively become the problem, and he's just not admitting that?
Well, the very fact that Reform are campaigning to get Keir out and to have Labour in an internal battle should give colleagues something to think about as to whether having a leadership contest now is the right thing to do. But as I say, the Prime Minister is not complacent at all about the scale of change needed. He made that really clear on Monday. We've all lost good council colleagues. I've lost some in my constituency, and we all feel very deeply about that. Everyone's hurting the party, and I'd say I think the focus needs to be on getting us back together and fighting forward and taking forward the change we were elected to. It took us 14 years to get here. The idea that we would throw that overboard in 2 years, I think, is really a dangerous moment for the party to be going down.
Well, I'm joined now by the journalist and author Ian Dunt to get reaction to what's been unfolding this afternoon. As I said in the last few minutes, a fourth ministerial resignation, Ian. A minister from Scotland, Zabir Ahmed, MP for Glasgow South West, hot on the heels of Alex Davies-Jones, of course, Welsh MP. She actually cited the scale of the electoral defeats in Wales as part of her reason for resigning. And Zabir Ahmed also citing what he's been hearing on the doorsteps in Scotland, people literally saying to him, Sir Keir Starmer is the problem.
Yeah, the pace of the resignations as well was incredibly damaging. So, I mean, it was 2 resignations when I undertook my journey to get here. It was 3 by the time I reached your studio, and it was 4 by the time I sat down at this desk. That kind of pace, that chipping away at authority, leaves you with very, very few good outcomes for Labour. Now, either you survive these challenges as Prime Minister or you don't. But if you don't, OK, you're gone. If you do, there's the prospect of a really kind of bloodied, beaten, battered Prime Minister with very little authority left, just continuing for what? For months? Possibly for years. Like, that is in a station of just perpetual chaos, perpetual insecurity. It's really bad for investment, it's bad for growth, it's bad for political stability. So there's very few good options for Labour from where we're sat right now.
Very few good options in terms of making a change at this point in time. We were speaking to Joe Twyman, the pollster, a little earlier on, and he was saying, you know, polls and all of that show that if you change a leader at this point, a lot of people with the Labour Party might think it's the answer to all their problems, that re-injection, that reinvigoration. But actually, as it plays out, it very often doesn't work. That message doesn't seem to filter through because we seem to be here quite a lot in this position, whether you're Conservative or Labour.
I mean, it sometimes doesn't work, sometimes it does. I mean, the obvious example is John Major. I mean, sometimes it does work. The thing you have to assess is, does someone else have a decent alternate plan? That's an easier question to answer because Keir Starmer really doesn't seem to have any plan at all. I mean, there's good policy on net zero, there's good policy on housing, there's delivery on those policies. People can see the change and they'll start feeling it soon. Elsewhere, there really isn't a policy at all. Like social care, what is the policy? Doesn't really exist. On healthcare, it's really quite a bit of a mess in Wes Streeting's department. Very few people think things are about to suddenly improve in a very, very dramatic way. You could say the same for the economy, you could say the same for connectivity, you could say the same for prisons. Most of the times, Keir Starmer didn't really grapple with policy. He wasn't that interested, and he didn't set up the kind of delivery units that we saw, for instance, under Tony Blair, that could secure changes. So now when they come out...
I mean, and also, I wanted to show you guys this, because I think this is quite interesting. Polymarket is only given really 11% chance that Keir Starmer formally resigns, or is hinting at some sort of timetable of removal by the 15th of May. They obviously believe that Keir Starmer would fight a battle rather than sort of accept that most of the MPs don't want him and that most of the public don't like him. He's going to just battle it on, which I think is quite interesting. An 11% chance. I mean, if it just gone down to 10%, for instance. I mean, if we look at the graph, you can see the odds move over time. It was, and obviously, the closer we get to the event happening, the value of the contract decays. That's why you're seeing a pattern go from top left to bottom right. But obviously, it spiked this morning up to 34%. But as people begin, or as bettors and traders begin to understand that Wes Streeting is bottling it a little bit, and that Andy Burnham's way to becoming a prime minister is going to require him to, at very least, become an MP. There doesn't seem to be many options available. Ed Miliband's not come out and said anything. Shabana Mahmood, I think I've said that, Shabana Mahmood, hasn't said anything. You know, it's interesting. I think that's interesting. I would have thought, and I've asked in the chat, and I think we've got a 50-50 response, whether he would go this. I asked whether he'd go today, but whether he'll go this week. Do we really think there's a 10% chance? I don't know. I think that's interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments.
out in the open, MPs saying they have no confidence in him, they want him to go, ministers quitting, the option of status quo, the option of staying with him, looks like a pretty grim option to revert to as well. So overall, hard to come up with an argument for why he should stay, and I think MPs will start to find it really quite easy to come up with an argument for why he should go.
Yeah, but what does it say about the Labour Party when they've got over 400 MPs, and we're seriously talking about bringing someone in who isn't even an MP and going through this whole rigmarole of trying to secure him a seat at a by-election he might not even win? You know, what does that say about the Labour Party in general? Because people will be watching on going, this is madness. You've got 400 elected MPs. Why isn't there a potential leader, Prime Minister, amongst them?
Yeah, and it's a lack of, to be honest, it's a lack of imagination as well, because there are other really quite impressive figures in the PLP, impressive figures around the cabinet table that you could opt for. And the truth is, there's a sort of degree of security around Burnham. There's a sense of, like, he has the charisma, he has the track record, he has support base outside of London. MPs are often really quite paranoid about whether any MP has that. Having any kind of support base at all outside of London is considered quite impressive. And I think there's an assessment that you can't do this again. Like, it can't go full Tories again. And this is just what we, you know, what takes place every 18 months or so. If you're going to do it, you have to stick with this person at least until after the next election. So you're going to go with your safest bet. For many MPs, they've decided that's Andy Burnham. Rightly or wrongly, they've decided it's Burnham.
What's your prediction for the next 24, 48 hours? Do you see a world in
go.
which we may well see Sir Keir Starmer resign if enough people come out to say we don't have confidence in you? And from what we've been discussing there today, that really needs to involve a member of cabinet, and it doesn't seem like that's likely. Or is there a world where there is a succession plan, as it were, and they play the long game, where they're like, let's talk about Andy Burnham in September?
I really hate that you've put me in the position to make a prediction in a situation that's almost impossible to predict. I don't know whether I'm letting my desires get the best of me. There is still a chance that around the cabinet table they can sit down and come up with a little bit more decorum and a little bit more dignity in this, and that will require a longer process going into the autumn that Burnham has to be involved in. He has to be involved in because that is who the soft left have mostly opted for. They won't feel that there's proper consent, like a proper mandate to the leadership, unless it involves him, no matter what someone happens to think of his record. So on that basis, it is the most sensible outcome now over the next 24, 48 hours for them to say, look, there's either a caretaker leader or Starmer continues for a while, but we put the leadership contest into the autumn to give Burnham a chance to get into Parliament. But just because something is the sensible option doesn't mean that it will happen in Westminster.
Well, exactly. Ian Dunn, journalist and author, thank you very much. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is standing by. It was a really interesting point that Ian made there. That, you know, he wants to see Andy Burnham.
If you care about this stuff. Keir Starmer, first time he's been spotted today. And there he is at the Apprentice site, trying to look interested. Deep down in that brain of his, he knows time's almost up. Tick tock. Tick tock. Stress, eh?
Twice, 2010 and 2015. He came fourth out of five the first time, and he was runner-up to Jeremy Corbyn the second time. His record as a government minister, he rose through the ranks, had a few middle-ranking jobs. He worked in the Treasury at number 11 at one point. He was Secretary of State for Culture and then Secretary of State for Health. When he was Culture Secretary, he got booed at Anfield at the 20th anniversary memorial for the Hillsborough tragedy. But then he became a campaigner for the Hillsborough bereaved, and the 25th anniversary, he got cheered and applauded. Now, as Health Secretary, he was criticised for opposing a public inquiry into the, do you remember the high death rate at Stafford Hospital?
Yes.
It was claimed that the standards of care there were not up to scratch, and he was criticised over that. And of course, he served briefly under Jeremy Corbyn and then decided to run for Greater Manchester Mayor. And he has indeed made being a regional mayor quite sexy, really, in a way, because, of course, he has achieved greater devolution powers, and he has shown that you can, if you've got the clout, the charisma and so on, you can achieve things in a big city like Manchester on transport. he tried to tackle. He did give a pledge he was going to get rid of rough sleeping by 2020. He was forced to admit he couldn't do that, but he has tried. He's done things to tackle homelessness and so on. He's also led calls for inquiries into sex abuse and grooming gangs and all that sort of stuff. So his record as Manchester Mayor is good. His record as a cabinet minister, well, not perhaps quite so good. He's never, of course, held one of the really top jobs like Chancellor of the Exchequer or Home Secretary or Foreign Secretary. And you could say there's a world of a difference between getting the buses to run on time in Manchester and dealing with President Trump and trying to sort out Ukraine and Putin and all that. It's a big jump. I mean, it's a big jump even just from becoming a cabinet minister to becoming prime minister. Gordon Brown found that out. Gordon Brown found that whilst you're just Chancellor of the Exchequer, you can just concentrate on the economy, nothing else. World of a difference when you're in there and you've got all the world's problems coming at you at 100 miles an hour. Everything from the economy to war in the Middle East, war in Ukraine and so on. So it would be a big jump for Andy Burnham. Having said that, you could probably say the same about Wes Streeting. Health Secretary, middle-ranking job, not one of the top jobs. Angela Rayner, her supporters would say,
I'm going to just say
fair
something.
to say, she had a good
We've
record
heard this
as
all day, and I'm going to stop streaming this segment here in a bit. But it gets very tiring having to hear these political commentators have to list out all of the ministers and say, oh, that's a middle-ranking job, oh, that's a high-ranking job. At the end of the day, the reason they've got that job tends to be because they're good friends with the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister trusts them. It has got nothing to do with their effectiveness, because at the end of the day, if it was about effectiveness, people like Keir Starmer would never even be close to being Prime Minister. And also, the actual reality is that the reason that none of this is going to work out for the Labour Party is because none of them are willing to tackle the actual issues that people want solved. They will just have talking points like, we need to solve the cost of living crisis, we need to get a handle on, the house building and so on and so forth. They will never target the big issues that people from the south to the north feel. Primarily, stuff to do with immigration and the boat crossings. It's the number one point. If your point of view isn't that we will stop those things and that we're going to cut them down completely, and we may even have a negative migration for a period of time to improve labour standards and living standards, if that's not your point of view as a potential Labour leader, then you've already lost. There is no point going through this whole circus. You might as well move on. That's my opinion. And that is my opinion, and I'm pretty sure it's the right one, because everyone that's been Prime Minister since Brexit has not believed in any of those things, hasn't actually ever enacted them. Actually goes further than that, probably before Blair, but it's not working out for them, and it's becoming more and more of a pressing point. It wouldn't surprise me if this summer we have another summer of discontent. It just would not surprise me, because people are just so annoyed with it all.
You turn up outside Downing Street, and
this guy's boring me.
We're standing in Downing Street. We've just seen the cabinet leave, including a rather long-faced Wes Streeting. The coup is over for now, or is it? Robert, what do you think?
Oh, I hate this guy.
The coup's over. What we've heard this morning, both in a statement issued
so bloody
by the
annoying.
Prime Minister right at the start of cabinet, and actually conversations I've had with senior ministers, is he's going to fight. There was a lot of pressure on him being put by Labour MPs, including ministerial aides who've had to quit the government, calling on him to set a timetable for his departure. He's basically stuck two fingers up at those people and said broadly the only circumstances in which even the possibility of a timetable for departure can be discussed is if somebody challenges him for the leadership. It reminds me of that, moment in the 90s.
I'm a fighter, not a quitter. Where have I heard that before?
Or put up, the John Major thing was put up or shut up. And that was the John Major line. Actually, ultimately, John Redwood did put up and lost.
Yeah.
We are seeing from Keir Starmer a very similar approach.
Well, I don't think much more is going to happen today, and if it does, then I'll be live streaming it. But for the time being, I think we're going to end it there for this. It's been an interesting one. I'm going to make an actual YouTube video on this. But thanks for watching. I've appreciated it. I've just started out doing the live streams. I'm going to do them every single day. And it won't just be about politics or UK politics. It will be either about finance or business or politics. But thanks for watching. I enjoyed it. I'm trying to get better at this. And I appreciate you guys joining me. So thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.